Hello and welcome to today's video as we go over patch 15.15, 25.15. A nerf heavy patch, as Freak said on Twitter. Keep in mind, I only look at buffs and nerfs based on what Riot says they are, and then the adjustments, I'll look at community sentiment and go from there whether people think it is a buff or a nerf. And it's very black and white. We're comparing players' champion usage to the patch and whether that's going to change what we see on the Rift and Pro play in Tier 1 play. To determine if a player has been buffed, that means they've played it at least one out of every 25 games over the last 3 years. That means 4% of games played since, I guess, season 13, 14, and what 15 has been thus far. A nerf is 10% of games played this season, rounding up. So I guess 9.5 and higher. Mainly a support heavy patch. Support is half this board, and I broke it down in an interesting way, in my opinion, to kind of look at it because there are differences between these players. In top lane, Rek'Sai was buffed, and we could say, well, Rek'Sai's majority a jungler, yes, but it was a top lane. I mean, the last time it was meta, it played top lane more than it played jungle in 2024. So Evie and Flandre both have played it more than anyone else at 4% of games played. It helps that Flandre did not play at all in 2013. But Evie played the entire time, and 4% of his games have been on the champion. Alawi, Aurelia, and Quinn also have been nerfed, and nobody really plays that all that much. I think Aurelia has 3 games played this season total, and Quinn has 1. So neither one's nerf really affects things. In the jungle, like I said, Rek'Sai's been buffed, but nobody played at 4% of games. Even when you take in Yikes games last season, he's only at 3%. In terms of nerfs, though, Bel'Veth was nerfed. Nobody plays Bel'Veth. Master Yi, definitely nobody plays that. And then Pantheon, which a lot of players play, and we'll talk about it right now. So Shadow, Xiao Houndgren. So for BLG and Thunder Talk, a lot of Pantheon games, nearly 1 out of every 5. Which is the most out of anybody in Tier 1. Then Razork and Tian at 16%, Yuji of Team Liquid at 14%, Linkus, Vitality 14%, Decimus, Vivokeed Stars also 14%. Then we have Karsa of PSG, Bukata of BDS, Levi of GAM, Shun of JDG, Monkey of Team Wii, Inspired of Fly, and lastly, Histo of Team Secret Whales. All of those people play Pantheon more than anyone else, at least 1 out of every 10 games, all the way up to Shadow and Xiao Houndgren, who play it almost 1 out of every 5. And with that being nerfed, and it was a clear jungle nerf. We'll see if it affects things. Like I said, we're just looking at it very basically, if it's a buff or a nerf, and not getting into the nitty gritty of how much we think it's going to affect pro play, or if it's a placebo buff or nerf. I don't give a shit, because oftentimes we'll see placebos do make effects on meta. So that is a thing. Mid lane, just Aurelia was nerfed, and nobody has played Aurelia this season. Bot lane, Nyla was nerfed. We had a few players play Nyla this season, but nobody 10% of games. Maybe one person even played it twice. It might have been Kalist. I don't think anyone else has even played it twice. But Corki was nerfed, and there are several players that have played Corki quite a bit, starting with Kadui of SK. 37% of his games in spring were on Corki. It was his most played. So heavily keying in on the Corki. We saw how bad SK were in the win-loss column. It probably wouldn't hurt if they moved on from that. Say, hey, well, God forbid, right? Well, we got to lose our most played. We were really, burning down the building with that one. Like, come on, let's be real here. It wasn't a champion that made you say, wow, that player's on fire. No. Wet noodle. Karzi of Vitality, Rahel of Disguised. So Rahel, also a big SK player in winter in a lot of Corki games. Maybe it was a SK thing. We'll see if the nerf affects it. And keep in mind, this was technically an adjustment, and community sentiment as it is a nerf, more for bot lane than mid, at least based on the few people I watched. Karzi, Vitality, 20%. On Flacked, Noah, 16, 15, and 15. So that's EDG, Team Heretics, and Giant X. We see a lot of LEC players listed up here, right? Even then, Ice, 12%. We got Hope of JDG, Seo of Leviton, Sven of Cloud9, Tomo of Dignitas, Taeyun of Team Wii, Masu of FlyQuest, and Eddie of Team Secret Whales. But what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the top 7 most played Corki. I mean, people that played Corki the most were in EU at the time. I mean, Rahel, of course, is in LTA North now, but the reality is a very big pick in the LEC, in the 80 carry role, and now that it's nerfed, will maybe nerf for bot lane. It will could affect things. We also see a lot of LTA players on here. I mean, Rahel technically now, and then Sven, Tomo, and Masu. And then we have support. So Alistar, Braum, and Rel were all nerfed. Those are 3 big picks in the support meta. They're very strong picks. Historically, we see them going in and out of meta throughout, the history of League with Alistar and for the most part, Braum. Rel, more recent champion compared to those two, but also meta and something that has flexed to jungle a bit. The players that had at least 10% of games played on all 3 champions, so all 3 would go down as nerfs. Curry of Pain, Trimby of Vivo Keat Stars, Alvaro of Koi, Gang of SoftBank Hawks, Palu of Brion, Mako of IG, YCX of LGD, Luan of Chief, Redbert of Loud, and Vampire of Team Wii. All played all 3 of those champions at least 10% of games. Ranging from Curry, at nearly half of his games played this season have been on those 3 champs, Trimby and Alvaro and Gang as well. So a lot of games played on these guys. Leona, Nautilus, and Rakan do escape these nerfs. I expect them to be strong because they are meta champs, especially when these 3 are absent. And then even we're looking at everybody as Vampire's more than 1 out of 3. The others, YCX, Mako, Luan, are 2 out of every 5. These are very common picks for these players. But it gets kind of weird because, we'll talk about Alistar Rel. There are some players that, we'll talk about Alistar Rel next. We're going to skip this and go to here. So Alistar Rel. There are several, there's more than a dozen players that played those 2 champs at least 10% of games, but not a lot of Braum games. These are guys that are not big Braum players. And Zhaozha of Ultra Prime played at 48% of his games in spring was between Alistar and Rel. Half of his games were on these 2 champions. Paris of BDS, 45%. Pro Delta on Fluxo now was on Leviton before, 41%. Wink, Balkan, Isles, Peter, June, Hung, Labrab, Zhui, Jojo, Crisp, Kellen, On, Woody, Targamas, Delight, Harp, and Isla. All played both of those champs at least 10% of games. But not Braum. So Braum was a champion that they did not like as much. Maybe it was just short of 10%. Some may have not touched it at all. Isla, it's almost 1 out of every 4 games. To Zhaozha, twice as often. He's playing these 2 champs. Delight's 1 out of every 4. We see Isles is 1 out of every 3. These are very common picks for these players, but Braum is not really part of that. But then we got the Braum and Rel players, so they're not Alistar players really. Toplop, I throw him up there because he is technically Leviton support, but he's only played 2 games, and, it was on Braum and Rel, so we'll see what he does going forward. But Niket of Nip, Andal of DRX, Lions of Lion Gaming, Life of DN Freak, Zhuo of LNG, and Taki of Team Secret Whales. All are big Braum and Rel players, but not playing a ton of Alistar. I do think of Alistar when I think of Taki, and I understand he plays Alistar, but he didn't play 10% of games, so that's a thing. Also, I guess I should say this in the beginning, champions are banned against players, and I don't include that on here. So that is a thing as well. But Niket, 2 out of every 5 games so far this season, whether it was on RNG or NIP to start summer, are on Braum and Rel. So very common picks for him. Andal, it's almost 1 out of every 3. Zhuo, it's 1 out of every 4. Taki, 1 out of every 5. And then some unique players. Nobody only played Braum, but didn't play Alistar or Rel. That wasn't a thing. Now, there were a handful of players or so that played a lot of Alistar, but not a lot of Braum and Rel. Ackerman of Isurus, Kaiwing of CFO, Busio of Fly, Feather of Thundertalk, Huhi of Disguise, Lahens of Nongshim, and Seos of Shopify. All big Alistar players, but not really Rel and Braum players. And Ackerman, it's over 1 out of every 5 games he's playing on Alistar. It's a very common pick for him. Kaiwing, pretty much the same. Seos, it's like 1 out of every 9 or so. Yeah, so those are the Alistar players, and then the Rel players. So the guys that really only play Rel, don't play Alistar or Braum. Peruka of EDG, he's only played, I don't even know if he's played 10 games, so keep that in mind. But then Frosty of Red, Mickey of Fnatic, Stend of Heretics, Loopy of SK, Cal of Anyone's Legend, Core JJ of Team Liquid, and Elio of GAM. Playing a lot of Rel, not a lot of Alistar and Braum. And Peruka, it's 2 out of 5 games so far to start the season. Frosty, it's 3 out of every 10. So, 1 out of every 4, 1 out of every 3. It's in that range. Very common pick for him to pick Rel. Mickey, 1 out of every 4. Loopy, 1 out of every 5. These are very, very big Rel players that just don't play Alistar and Braum, which is interesting. And then, if you've followed my channel for a while, you'll notice one player that's not referenced, and I can't go without saying it. Sulong. Sulong did not play any of these champions 10% of games. He's not a big player of these champs for MKVE, Vikings Esports. And if you've been around for a long time on the channel, you know that I purposely said Sulong first and left Keria off. Keria is the other player that does not play these 3 champions 10% of his games individually. It might be 9-9 or whatever, but it is not 10%. And there are only 2 players that can claim that. So T1 and Vikings can get away with it from this patch and it not really affect champion usage. Obviously, Keria's champion pool is, in my opinion, the deepest one in League. And it's evident over the years. And he's not a big player of those. But Sulong is someone that deserves more respect because, he's also not playing these champions. He is not, using a champion as a crutch. And that's not to say people are using champions as a crutch, but I do think the wider the champion pool, the more champion flexibility, the more options a team has, and the better a team will be. So when a player is playing a champion a shit ton of games, whether it's winning or losing, I feel it makes them very predictable. And then when push comes to shove in games that really do matter, scouting becomes very simple. But, yeah, so it's interesting that a couple players didn't play these champions at all, but several, many play all 3, but some it breaks down to these guys don't play this, these guys don't play that. And it's just something I thought about breaking down in this way for this video. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, like it, subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content, follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, become a YouTube supporter, and hope to see you again tomorrow.